The sky is full of skylark song, which is very nice. Goldfinches too flying over, but it's dominated by skylark, and this field is still dominated by Phacelia. It's one of several fields of Phacelia in the Eakring area, and it's changed somewhat. There's a lot of oxeye daisies developing and other daisy-like members of the Compositae family. I'm here not for the flowers, but for butterflies. I'm having a walk around here to see how painted ladies are doing. Are there still any painted ladies here? I think there should be some, because I've still got a long-staying individual in the garden, but I've heard of another but smaller northerly migration occurring in Pembrokeshire over the last few days. Will they be heading this way? It would be nice to think so, but from what I've seen in the short walk from the car to this point, there's plenty of evidence that the first two waves have left behind here. And that evidence is what they've left behind: a succession of broods of painted lady caterpillars. There must be thousands in this field alone, on both the creeping thistle, which is what you're looking at here, and also the spear thistle too. This caterpillar here, unusually, is quite near the top. Caterpillars of this size you will find probably more so towards the basal half of thistles, but it's also giving us a nice clear picture of what to look for. And these look about half grown, maybe just under, and I have seen one that's very recently molted. They are an incredibly easy find. This, without a doubt, is an amazing year for painted ladies. Although the initial movement wasn't as concentrated or as large as the last two big movements of painted ladies, they've left behind more larvae than what I can remember the other two large influxes ever doing. This field is full of painted lady larvae. There are literally painted lady caterpillars every couple of plants in various stages, but the predominant size seems to be like the one we've just looked at, which this one here is the same kind of size, but you get an idea of the untidy kind of web or tent that these caterpillars construct. When they get into the final instar, they have to go down to the lower leaves, the larger leaves, so that they can create such a tent. And when they do that, it tends to be that the edges of the leaf are pulled over. It's a very loose tent, but when it's at this sort of stage, third instar, it is quite tatty, but it's very, very obvious. And that tattiness to the webs of painted ladies is caused by the eaten foliage and the spines. The caterpillars will eat all the leaf, but they'll obviously leave the spines, but they become incorporated into the tent which the caterpillar constructs. If we just open this up a little bit just to show you the actual caterpillar. This one has recently molted. The head is at the lower end, and they are quite variable. Some painted lady caterpillars in final instar can be quite yellow, as I saw, I don't know whether it was last year or the year before, but the majority are often like this. But it's only an invalid which feeds on thistles. Very important that we leave thistles, because they're going to be a vital nectar source in a week or so. Well, here's a younger larval tent that I have opened up. You can just about make the larva out in there. Considerably smaller, probably only second instar, and consequently a much smaller web. That's what your early instar larval web or tent looks like. The larva can fix that, no bother, with a few strands of silk. But this confirms really that both waves of painted ladies have subsequently laid, and the resulting larvae are growing from both broods. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks in July. There are going to be, hopefully, painted ladies everywhere. Of course, much of that will depend on the success of these larvae getting through to adult. There's lots of potential harms that can stop them from reaching adult. Parasitisation is one, of course. But to compare this larva here and the size of this larva to this one just next to it, and then we have this one just a couple of feet away from the larva that we just showed, that was only second instar, and we have this final instar. This is obviously from one of the butterflies that first arrived here a few weeks ago. So we've got caterpillars, probably the whole age range in this particular field. I've never seen them so easy to find as this. This field, like the other Phacelia fields, but this one in particular, is an absolute joy to walk around and to look at. It's got a great variety of flowers growing in it, even knapweed appearing. But like all Phacelia fields, they're only here for a given length of time. And this is the second year for this field. Whether it'll be here for a third or not, I don't know, but it's an absolute picture. And with painted lady caterpillars pretty much on every stand of thistle here, it's just fabulous to look through. I've never seen so many painted lady caterpillars, or been able to find them so easily. And here's another plant which has a succession of larval webs on here. There's probably been 2 larvae on here, but we start off with the larval web down the bottom here. There's one there, evidence of one there, one in here. But the larva is currently full grown and in that web there. In fact, this larva is slightly larger than the one we've just been looking at, but clearly last instar, and a few more days of feeding, and this will be large enough and ready to pupate. Well, we get more larvae here, this time on spear thistle. Spear thistle is a much larger plant, very stout, thicker, fleshier leaves, and the feeding damage is pretty much the same, but it appears whiter on the older leaves. I will show you some in a bit, but in here we have a larva which is just molted into its final instar. The larva is there. I don't want to disturb it, but it's only very recently molted because the spines are still white and soft. Well, there's a paler painted lady, almost you could say like the yellow form of the caterpillar, full grown again. And this one is right on the edge of part of this field. Part of the field actually which has been re-sowed with Phacelia. So there is going to be some in the Eakring area for next year. But painted ladies will lay on the scrappiest and scruffiest of plants. Don't always look for the beautiful, healthy growing plants. Well, it's not just painted ladies which are here, of course, because this is the larval web of red admiral. There is a caterpillar in here. This is typically what mid-stage or mid-instar caterpillars do, just fold the leaves over. But if I carefully undo it, and there's the red admiral caterpillar. Very similar. It's about third instar here and fourth instar. And we'll pretty soon leave this spun together leaf and go elsewhere on the plant. So around this field there are both of our migratory nymphalids. In fact there are two, because more or less on the same nettle plant you can see this caterpillar tucked away in its leaf. It's been lovely to wander around this field of Phacelia, and I've gone round the length and breadth of this field and recorded two very worn adult painted ladies. But had I continued searching for the larva of painted ladies, then I wouldn't be no more than 10 yards from the car. Still probably there are hundreds, if not thousands, tucked away on the creeping thistles and spear thistles in the field behind me. It's a great prospect that in July there will be painted ladies everywhere, even more than those numbers that people have seen a few weeks ago. We've had two waves of painted ladies go through the UK and through Nottinghamshire, and apparently a smaller one is also underway. I've seen no sign of that though. In fact, I've seen very few butterflies. A couple of meadow browns have put in the first appearance of the year, and a couple of small coppers too. Otherwise, there's not been a great range of insects, at least not visibly. Once again, if I'd walked through the middle of the field, I would be inundated with insects. But there's not particularly large numbers of many species, apart from painted ladies, and that's nice. It's also nice to know that come July, painted ladies throughout the UK will either move north again or move south. Who knows which way they will go. They often return south quite early, painted ladies. Either way, I hope to be here when they're moving through, once they've decided which direction they're going in.